I really believe there's two ways to manifest. There's through the 3D, which is the traditional way of pushing and forcing and making things happen and hustling. And then there's through your energetics and your mind and your thought patterns. And I believe that when we bring both of them together, we are infinitely more powerful. Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the Alignment with Jenn podcast. I am your host, Jenn, and today I wanted to share about how I reprogrammed my brain to really change my life. I want to give you a bit of a background on my story and really the transformation that I've experienced through really learning how to reprogram my mind. And then I also want to give you 6 different tools that I used in order to shift and change my mind in order to create truly a completely different life for myself. So I am really excited to deliver this episode to you, and I hope that it creates a huge impact in your life and that you leave with some really amazing tools and some really amazing strategies to become the best version of yourself, especially in this new year. So to give you a little bit of background, when I started this journey, it was about over a decade ago, and I was very, very anxious. I was constantly anxious. I was constantly having anxiety attacks and panic attacks. I was struggling at work because I would get really, really anxious speaking up at work and doing work presentations, and I was in sales, and so it was not really going super well. I just felt like I was working against myself. Like I was constantly struggling to become the version of myself that I knew I could be. And I felt very unfulfilled. I didn't feel like I was doing work that felt good to me, that felt authentic to me. And I just felt like I was truly living out of alignment, and hence why now I have this business, Alignment with Jenn, because it really is about coming into alignment. And I believe that that truly begins with our mind and our soul and our body. So what I did is I basically started going on this journey where I started really studying the mind and the brain and manifestation and the subconscious mind and the nervous system in order to change and shift the quality of my life. And I ended up finding a variety of different tools, a variety of different resources that allowed me to basically heal my anxiety. I would say that 98% of my anxiety is completely gone now. I don't get panic attacks anymore. I don't get anxiety attacks anymore. I truly am a different person. I feel like I moved from one timeline to a completely new, different timeline, and it was through my mind. And so now I also have a business that as soon as I started this business, it was very successful. I was able to quit my job pretty much immediately after I started it because it was producing more than a full-time income. And that was all because of this inner work that I had done. And I really believe there's 2 ways to manifest. There's through the 3D, which is the traditional way of pushing and forcing and making things happen and hustling. And then there's through your energetics and your mind and your thought patterns. And I believe that when we bring both of them together, we are infinitely more powerful. And so that is really what I did with my journey. And I was able to move into a career that was way, way, way more fulfilling for me. I am happy on a daily basis. I wake up excited for my life versus kind of dreading the day. And it was this complete shift. Not only to mention, I forgot about this part, is that I was having all these health problems as well. I was having gut issues, I was having skin issues in addition to the anxiety. And as I started working on my mind, all of these things began to resolve. And I had tried so many things on the physical level. I'd worked with tons and tons of doctors. I spent over $100,000 just trying to heal my physical body through doctors and supplements and protocols and things like that. And it was not until I started working with my mind and my nervous system that true healing happened for me, and it happened very quickly. And so if you are in a place where you're like, I really want to change my life and I want to become that best version of myself and really reach my potential, go after the things that I want to go after. Maybe it's starting your own brand. Maybe it is growing within your company. Maybe it's healing a physical illness that you have. Working with your mind and learning how to reprogram your brain is going to get you 10 times farther than leaving that element out. So the reason that our mind is so essential is that what happens as we grow and as we experience life is our body becomes our mind. Our body becomes programmed with certain thought patterns, with certain habits of emotion, and those are what we end up playing out. So for me, I was playing out the pattern of anxiety where I was always anxious. It was very easy for me to program and play that pattern in my mind of feeling anxious. And what I had to do is I had to retrain my mind to experience something else. But what I've seen along this path that has been so amazing for me is it's not even just you're retraining the old patterns. It's you can train in extremely pleasurable states, like states of bliss, where you wake up in the morning and you feel bliss or you feel excitement, or it's easy for you to feel incredibly good. I think that the reason most people don't feel super happy or super elated on a daily basis is because they literally have not trained themselves to feel those feelings. Because it's not necessarily cool, it's kind of vulnerable to feel really happy and to express a high level of happiness. And so when you can train your body and you can train your mind to produce those signals, then you're going to create a completely different life for yourself, because the quality of your life is the quality of the emotions that you experience on a daily basis. The more that you're able to experience high vibrational emotions like bliss and joy, the more that your actions are going to be fueled by this really potent energy, right? It's like using a really high quality gasoline for your car versus like some crappy gasoline that's going to gunk up your system. When you are running on the fumes of stress, when you are running on the fumes of frustration or anxiety, then you are depleting your system. It's causing wear and tear on your body. It's causing wear and tear on your mind. When you can program yourself for these higher vibrational emotions, then you're fueling yourself with this very clean fuel that allows you to be more potent, that allows your actions and your energy to be stronger. The way that I kind of think about this process and what I did is I moved from these survival emotions of anxiety and fear and stress that most people, especially in the United States, are living in, into what I refer to as the creator mode, the mode of actually creating and designing your life, all the way down to designing the emotions and the thoughts that you want to experience, actually choosing them versus letting the outside world dictate how you're going to feel. When we are in survival mode, we are in this state of stress. Our body is in a state of stress. The amygdala part of our brain, this like signal, this alarm signal in our brain, is constantly scanning for danger. It's scanning for rejection. It's very focused on this external world. That's what our mind is focused on. And this actually shuts down the creative centers in our brain. So we're less able to find solutions. We're less able to be more creative. And so we truly actually are living with like this sense of tunnel vision where we can't see everything that's available to us. And what we might experience within our mind is we might experience things like analysis paralysis, where we're constantly thinking, and we're not quite doing as much as we want to do. Or we might feel wired and tired, where we might be doing a lot, but we're feeling very exhausted as we do it, or we're feeling depleted from the actions that we're taking. It could even be something that you love to do, but you're in this state of stress as you do it, so it feels depleting. And so when we move into the creator mode of the brain and of the body, what happens is that alarm system, that amygdala in our brain, is able to calm down. And so it's not always scanning our environment for stress. What that allows us to do, it allows us to divert more energy toward creation, toward creative projects, toward problem solving, toward seeing the world in a more positive light. It allows us to naturally be more optimistic, to naturally be happier. We're not diverting energy towards survival, we're allowing that energy to flow toward creation. And so our brainwaves can calm down. It's easier for us to get into states of meditation where we're able to tap into those higher brainwave frequencies and connect to information from infinite intelligence from the universe and get more creative ideas. This is when time begins to collapse because we're no longer doing it ourselves. We're no longer doing it in the 3D. We're tapping into this infinite intelligence that we all have access to. When we move into that state of creation, we are able to create from joy and from love. And that's a much cleaner, more potent fuel than in survival. We're creating from fear and from lack. We're creating from I better get this done or else something bad might happen, versus when we create from joy, we are so much more potent. We are so much more alive and available. So that's kind of what I think of the process that I went through. And it's an ever expanding process, right? What I have discovered is there's ever available expanding layers of positive emotions that we can feel. There's no limit to how good we can feel. We can keep upping the ante and upping the bar for ourselves. And I find that really exciting because with each new level that you reach, there's new gifts, there's new resources, there's new solutions and intelligence and creativity available to you. So a big aspect of moving from survival to creation is creating heart coherence. So I've talked about this a little bit before on the podcast. Essentially what heart coherence is it's when our heart and our brain are in alignment. The signals that they are sending are coherent and smooth. If you were to measure them, they would be smooth versus in survival, they look more like this. They look more chaotic and agitated. What happens is when our heart and our mind are in sync and they're sending out the same signals, the same positive, smooth, coherent signals, our energetic field is sending out that smooth, coherent signal. And we are much more powerful of manifestors. We're much more able to attract in the things that we desire because we are sending out an aligned signal. There's not a disconnect between what we think and what we feel. There's harmony, and it's a smooth, potent, powerful harmony. And so when we learn to regulate our nervous system, when we learn to clear out the negative thoughts, the negative habits that we may have, and we raise our vibration, we more naturally experience this coherence. And from that place is when we start to experience all of those synchronicities and those beautiful experiences in our life that really feel like magic. It feels like we're living in this world of magic and miracles. And I was talking to one of my friends yesterday at lunch, and we were talking about how when you are not tapped into this, it does not exist for you. When you're not tapped into those coherent states and into that harmony within your system and that creative field, it doesn't exist for you. All that exists for you is matter and moving matter. And so as you start to tap into this, it's essentially tapping into magic because you're tapping into this world that's not available to you if you're not operating at a certain frequency. And I always get this question from my clients, and it's that, well, what about when I feel stressed? What about feeling anxious? Am I messing everything up? Am I completely undoing everything I've done? And I always say, this is not about perfection. It's not about getting to these harmonious frequencies and staying there forever. It's about practicing and cultivating a life where you continuously move into those frequencies so you can keep tapping into the gifts available to you at those frequencies. These are the tools that I used and that I always go back to really reprogram my mind to allow my body and my mind to create this coherent signal. The first thing is that I created a really clear vision for myself. I didn't create a perfect vision. I created a very clear vision for myself at the time. Initially, my vision was much more limited. It was, I don't want to feel anxious. I want to be able to fly to different countries and not feel anxious on the plane. Those were the thoughts I was having at the time. So that was my vision. Now my vision's so much more expanded than that, right? But start with where you're at. Your vision can always evolve. But if you don't have a vision, if you don't have clarity on where you want to be, and I don't recommend creating a vision like I did where it's what you don't want. Create a vision of what you do want. If you don't have that vision, what happens is your mind doesn't have a destination to go to. It's like getting in the car and being like, I want to drive from California to New York and not putting anything in your GPS. It's going to be a lot harder to get there than if you put something in your GPS and your mind, your body, your energy has a destination. You can always update that destination, right? You can always update your Google Maps, but having an initial destination is going to give you so much clarity, and it's literally going to take your energy from being this diffuse ball to a focused laser beam on this is where I'm going. And when you decide, this vision feels a little outdated, then update it. That's the whole point of the journey. It's not to have a perfect vision, it's to keep updating it. So that's the first step. And especially like right now, we're at the start of the year, it's a beautiful time to create a vision for yourself of what it is that you want to create this year. I love to create a vision basically in two ways. I love to have a written vision of what I want and describing it, and I write it in the present tense. And then I like to have a visual vision. A visual vision is basically a vision board. A couple episodes back, I talked about a vision board. I think it was episode 26. I talked about vision boarding and how I do vision boarding. You can listen to that one if you'd like to learn more. But those are going to guide your energy. That's all you're doing. You're basically putting railroads or bumpers on a bowling alley to guide your energy. And that's what your vision does. It does not need to be perfect. Then the second thing that I did, so I got really clear, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to be. I put the destination in my GPS. Then what I did is I call it cleansing the vessel. So all of our souls are a vessel that is able to hold blessings. And as we evolve spiritually, what happens is our vessel is able to expand and we're able to hold more blessings. And when we're in a really contracted state, like I was when I was really anxious, I was contracting my vessel. So I wasn't as able to hold the blessings that I wanted. And as I've learned to trust and as I've cleansed my fears and my doubts, I have been able to expand my vessel to receive more. I've tapped into more of that magic and synchronicity in the universe. Really, there's one tool that I go back to over and over and over again for this, and this is rewiring the subconscious mind. I've done many different episodes on this. I have different programs on this. Essentially, what you're doing when you rewire the subconscious mind is your subconscious mind is running the show behind the scenes. The way I think about it is it's like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain who's like dictating what's happening in Oz and is running everything behind the scenes. That's what your subconscious mind is doing. It is below the level of your awareness. So oftentimes what it is doing, you're not fully aware of. So when we reprogram it, essentially what we're doing is saying, okay, I have these old beliefs and doubts and fears that no longer serve me, right? For me at the time, it was all of these fears causing my anxiety of what are people going to think of me? How am I going to make money without being in corporate? It was all of these different fears and doubts. So I had to get clear. First, the step was to get aware of what those beliefs and doubts were. Then I used tools to rewrite those beliefs. Now, I've done a lot of research and study, and I've gotten many certifications on different tools to rewire the subconscious mind. And there's many, right? People talk about subliminals, people talk about hypnosis, there's RRT, there's EFT. What I find is there's some tools that work very quickly and some will take a lot longer. And that's a little bit outside of the scope of this episode. And so if you want to learn more about those tools and rewiring the subconscious mind, send me a message on Instagram that just says curious, and I'll send you information and a video about that. But that is an essential step because those old programs will continue to run the show until you clear out what's really going on. So that was the second step that I took, and that allowed me to expand my vessel to receive more because I was no longer operating in those emotions of fear. Then the third step that I took, and I continue to take all of these steps. It's not like I did them once and they're done. The third step that I took was teaching myself to live in the emotions of the future that I wanted. So our emotions are habits. Most people experience the same emotions every single day because they've just programmed themselves from childhood to experience those emotions because those are probably the emotions they saw their parents experience or their family members. What we want to do is we want to say, you know what, this is the future vision I have for myself. That vision feels exciting, it feels fun, passionate, it feels full of love. So we want to start practicing those emotions now because those emotions are the magnet that's going to draw those experiences to you. So we want to reprogram the habitual emotions from the old survival emotions to the new emotions of our future. And that's not only going to draw your future to you more quickly, but it's also really fun. It feels really good to practice feeling bliss, to practice feeling in love, to practice feeling abundant. It feels amazing. It's like taking a drug without taking a drug. It feels great. So the way that I do this, and you can do this, it's so simple, is just put on a song that you like. I recommend a song without any lyrics, just any song that you really like. You're like, this feels so good to listen to. You can put on binaural beats. It literally doesn't matter. You can get a meditation. The simplest way is just get a song you like and close your eyes and imagine yourself living that future that you want. and truly imagine it. Don't imagine just like some vague thing. Imagine moments, right? Let's say that you really want to fall in love this year. You want to find your person and you want to fall in love. So imagine yourself cuddling with that person on the couch and give yourself a moment to feel, what does it actually feel like to cuddle with that person on the couch, to have their arm around me? You will automatically start to feel those emotions because your mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and imagined. So when you let yourself feel those emotions, watch out, because things are going to start showing up in your reality that match those emotions. You might start getting asked out more. You might meet your person, right? You might have all of these people showing love to you. You're going to have experiences that match your emotional state. Let's say that you want to create way more wealth for yourself this year. What would it actually feel like to have X amount of dollars, $1 million, $10 million in your bank account right now? How would you move as that person who had that amount of money in your bank account? How would you make decisions, right? I love doing this seated in visualization. I also love doing this when I'm walking, right? When I'm walking, I'll ask myself these questions. If I had X, Y, and Z right now, not tomorrow, literally right now is already done, how would I feel? What would I be thinking about? How would I make decisions from this moment? That is how you live as if. If you've ever wondered, I know we talk about a lot living as if, right? That's how you do it. You feel into that emotion, you get connected to that future, and you make decisions from that place. And it's going to happen like that. Then the fourth thing that I did is I started really understanding how I was speaking to myself. Because what I noticed is that old version of me on that old timeline, she was really hard on herself. She didn't appreciate herself. She didn't acknowledge herself for the good things that she did. She kind of bullied herself. And so I started really reflecting, how am I speaking to myself? And how would I speak to myself if I was genuinely my best friend? Are you going to call up your best friend 10 times a day and be like, man, that was stupid. You shouldn't have done that. That was terrible. No, they would literally not be your best friend ever. You are going to call up your best friend and they're going to tell you about their day. And even if it's a rough day, you're going to be like, you know what? That's okay. Things like that happen. What do you think you could do differently next time? Or I'm proud of you for doing this. You still did this, right? So what I created is called the self-acknowledgment practice. It's so easy. All you do is you could do it on a 5-minute drive in your car. You just think about the past 48 hours and you say, okay, I'm really proud of myself for not getting mad in traffic. I'm really proud of myself for planning my day the night before. I'm really proud of myself for going to the gym when I didn't want to go to the gym. And you just start to acknowledge yourself. What you are doing is, first, you are repairing that relationship with yourself. You're showing yourself how you want to be loved, so that way other people know how to love you, because other people are taking cues from you on how to love you. That practice is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly powerful. And then there's also just noticing how you're speaking to yourself. Are you speaking to yourself in a way that makes you feel good? Or are you speaking to yourself in a way that makes you not feel so good? That I think we could do an entire episode on, but just first start playing with the self-acknowledgement practice. I've had so many clients do this and they all love it. It makes you feel kind of high because you're like, wow, I really needed that self-acknowledgement. Oftentimes the things that we want from other people are the things that we're not giving ourselves. And the things that we're not giving ourselves are really hard for other people to give to us because it's like giving to a sieve. It's just going to fall through. So if we want love from another person, but we can't give love to ourselves, that's going to be a very leaky relationship. We're going to constantly be needing more and more and more love from that person. But when we can give ourselves love or give ourselves acknowledgement, we repair that relationship so we can actually hold the love that we do receive. The next thing that I really focused on, and I kind of touched on this earlier, but was living as my future self. So I'd have those conversations where I said, okay, if I was here, if I was running a business that I really loved, how would I make decisions? What would I be doing throughout my day? And this allowed me to take more risks. It allowed me to feel more comfortable taking that next step, because oftentimes we'll hold ourselves back from taking those next steps because we say, well, I'll do it when. I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do it when I feel more confident. I'll do it when I have the proof. But it's very hard to get the proof if we don't start. So I started making decisions from that future version of myself. So one of the things that I did at that time was I started my supplement business, and I made decisions in that business as if I already had a really successful supplement business. So I said, okay, my website, when I first started the business, it was okay. And I said, well, if I already had a really successful supplement business, then I would invest in a really nice website. Investing in that nice website paid off so much when I went to sell the business because I had this beautiful website, right? Making those decisions as my future self, even when I didn't see the payoff, paid off a lot for me. So ask yourself, really ask yourself, and do some journaling around this. What decisions would I make differently if I knew I would not fail? If I knew my success was inevitable, how would I make this decision? And then make that decision and follow through with powerful emotions, and you will change your life like that. The final thing that I did is what I call flooding. So we are constantly bombarded by a lot of programming from the outside world, right? When you're scrolling social media, when you're on TV or on Netflix, even when you're driving along the freeway and you're seeing billboards or you're listening to the radio, there's all of these inputs coming into us that are just haphazard and random. What you want to do is you basically, as you're trying to change your life, is like, I almost want you to think about cocooning yourself. I want you to think about, okay, I'm going to fill my cocoon only with really positive inputs. I'm going to flood myself with podcasts, with music, with friendships, with books. Everything that's coming into you that you can control, I want it to be in alignment with who you actually want to be. And you will see yourself changing so much more rapidly. So instead of watching true crime before you go to sleep, watch something on Gaia, or listen to this podcast, or read a book, or meditate. Do something that your future self would do. Clear out all of the old stuff and flood yourself with that new information. It's also really helpful, especially if you're just getting into either the spiritual world or the manifestation world or learning this kind of stuff. The more that you can build belief in it by listening to different teachers teach this kind of material, by listening to different books, the more that you are going to dramatically change your mindset, because you're going to remove all those old inputs, which is alone, that's going to do a lot. Then you're going to input all of these delicious things. I hope you have loved this episode. I want to invite you into a new audio series that I created. This is a really great series to flood yourself with new information and belief and to create changes for yourself. It's called Everything I Touch Turns to Gold, and it is a series about creating more money using your subconscious mind, using your nervous system, using your energetic frequency. And it's really about how to create more money by doing less. So the first time that I started implementing these tools, I tripled my income in a month just from the tools that I'm going to teach in this audio series. So if you're interested in that, it's linked in the show notes. You can also message me on Instagram, the word gold, at Alignment with Jenn, and I'll send you the link for it and you can get inside. It's awesome. It's audio. You can listen to it as you walk. So I hope you have loved this. Please share this if you found it valuable. Please leave a comment. Your comments really help me to know what kinds of episodes you enjoy so I can make more of those episodes. Tell me what you liked. You can even ask me questions in the comments and I'll answer them in future podcasts. So I hope you love this, and I'll see you in the next one.